We're here.
Yeah. There are sheets you guys might need for the meeting on that table there.
Need what?
There's some copies of what we're
I
going to go over.
print, I got my own copy.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my own.
Mike,
Mike,
some
give
copy of
Copies over there. Minor. Oh. Okay, I'm ready to go.
Okay, it's 7:01. That's meeting is started. Pledge allegiance.
Yep.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe there's any agenda changes.
Have one?
Oh, do you? Okay.
I get, add the count. Sorry, thanks. To add the calendar, for 2026 on here. At time it said originally had it on, he took it off when he did the other agenda changes. And so that's to approve the agenda or approve the calendar dates for the meetings.
Okay.
2026. And I'd recommend we do that at the new business after the other,
All right.
at the end of the business.
Is that it?
Yes.
Any public comment? No, no comment? The floor is open if you want to make a comment on something. You can wait till the end if you want.
Well, traditionally, comments regarding agenda
Agenda.
items would be up front and general items would be at the end. But that's your discretion, since you're the chair.
Are you ready? Could you talk now? That's fine.
On the agenda, so it's up to you on whether or not I'm nominated.
No, it's fine. Mhm.
I don't know where you guys are on your short-term rental and what planning commission does. I know there was a meeting last night. Short-term rental.
Could you state your name?
David Hall.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. So short-term rental, again, I don't know where you guys are on short-term rental.
You want me to give you a quick brief and then
Yeah.
history and then you can,
Okay.
and you know who I am. Okay, so when I got elected in a year ago, the planning commission had already been started on and tackling the short-term rental ordinance, first draft. And I think it rolled out, I want to say February, out of this planning commission to the board of trustees. They mulled it over for a few months. Then a committee within the board started looking at making some additional changes to it. And it evolved into 8-4, which you see now. And that was delayed partially last year, or this past year, because of getting an attorney opinion on some of that stuff. So this been in the process literally for 2 years. And so where we're at right now, public hearing was last or 2 nights ago. The board of trustees will be meeting specifically on that for the only thing on the agenda on the 16th. And where it goes from there, I guess, remains to be seen. But there was,
In a sense, it doesn't come back.
No,
So my words tell you about STR really would be,
well,
worthless.
I don't, you,
Just not appropriate.
this,
So
every
that's fine.
person on this board carries a lot of weight within the trustees as well as you as a citizen. So, if you've got something to say
Okay.
that
Okay.
I have no problem listening.
Then I'll say that
Sure.
about short-term. And, we all talk about Blywood. They're because of
Higgins Lake. We think we're here because of Higgins Lake. But I will tell you, over the decades, when someone would come visit us, we would take them out on the lake and they would talk about how beautiful the lake is. And we'd say, you know why? We have no commercialization. We have no bars on the lake. We have no restaurants on the lake. You want commercialization, you go to Houghton Lake. You go to Traverse City. You go to Gaylord. We have no commercialization. So why do we have no commercialization? There's a lot of reasons why, but that's another reason. So the Supreme Court, Michigan Supreme Court rules that STRs are a commercial business. And we have zoning that talks about no commercial. And we have an existence here of beauty and peace because of no commercial. I kind of call STR the Trojan horse. We didn't know this was going to happen. We didn't know we were going to have this kind of ripple effect, huge ripple effect, almost like wakeboard boats on STRs. So, back in the beginning of life around here, which could have been before the 1800s, but I think reality started around the 30s and the 20s. And my grandparents had a resort, Samuelset. At one point, we had 22 cabins. We gave out rowboats. We helped people unpack their cars. We lived there. And we made sure the boats were on the beach, and we took care of the place. Things were different back then. A family would come, there'd be 4 people. Today, a family comes, there's 15. I have mixed emotions about short-term rental because of my history here. And that's how we started. Hotels, then resorts, then people started buying the resort places, and here we are now. And they can't afford them, so they rent them or however we want to do it. So there are 3 to 4 more times people. And that's where our issue comes with all the people that come. We heard last night, safety was an issue. We don't know who the neighbor is. So there's all these things that go against the master plan. They go against everything. So we've been a we should stay a non-commercial place. And I've had trouble for 2 years as we talk about this. And I started to realize where it is, and we should not have short-term rentals in residential areas. We should not. And that's my opinion, and I wanted to throw that out there. Maybe what we could do is have a seasonal STR, but not in the summer, in the winter, when it's thin. And we probably could use a little bit more money coming in because people cross country ski, they want to hunt, they want to snowmobile, they want to use the winter, they want to see the fall. And maybe there could be something there that would help us. Come the summer, as far as the economy goes, I don't know. We don't go to the restaurant in the summer because we can't get in. So
Like you don't go on the lake.
Exactly.
So maybe there's an idea. I don't know. But listen, the reasons for short-term rental become emotional. The only one we can put our hat on, I guess, is the economy. But the other one's about the family that comes to the lake and they come and they love the lake and their just heart is there and they even had a wedding there and they're all there and we're renting because they get that's well, when you bought the rental places, they were probably inflated. And because of the rental situation, the prices are high and these people who love the lake can't afford the spot. And then there's the emotions about how, well, we've been here the whole time and now we don't have the money for the taxes. And these are emotional issues. If we go back to the rules and what the laws are and where we are, we have zoning rules and we have put this place in a non-commercial area. And we want to keep it that way. I think we do. Guess we're at that point.
I was not here because I was under the weather, but I was online and I heard everyone that spoke. I've also, since then, I probably have gotten 15 more emails from people. I can tell you, when I got elected, I knew the issues of the sewer, and that was going to be a defining part of my tenure here as treasurer. But I did not see this. I didn't see this coming. I never saw it until, and I think that it indicates exactly what you had said. It's seeped in. The whole thing with the zoning, you're dead on. I agree with you, but it seeped in, and it's been here all along. But it's just now so prevalent, and it's not just here; it's all over the country, all over the world. There's just these popping up, and it's becoming a problem. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we're going to end up with, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be an ordinance. There's not a question in my mind in that. The sunset thing is part of it is going to be a tricky one if we pursue that. But and I feel for some of the people that you said that can't afford their taxes, but on the same token, if I can't afford steak, I buy hamburger when I go to the store. But I don't know exactly what's going to happen on the 16th. Trying to be open-minded about the whole thing, but I completely agree with you. When it was just a mom and pop school, they lived there and they're renting out cabins by there. It wasn't a problem. When you go and buy a piece of property in the middle of a residential area that was never there and make it commercial by what you got going in there, you just violated the zoning, and there's no, it's clear to me, but whether it's enforceable or not without that police ordinance is what we're up against. Because our attorneys are telling us, I think Jason's in agreement that to enforce it through zoning would be very difficult, if not impossible, where the police ordinance gives us that power to do that. And we're trying to be fair about it because we did not have to have a public hearing to put in that police power.
The public hearing was good to hear what everybody has to say, or at least those that have a.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fine. Sure.
Yeah, I had a question, Jim, for you. Will there be public comment at the meeting on the 16th?
Will there be?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a public meeting.
okay. All right, thank you.
Everybody except you, Greg.
That's your opportunity to speak then, if you want to go to the public hearing.
I'll probably be there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your comments.
Thanks for your time.
Yep.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, moving on, we have election of officers for 2026. The first one is the chairperson. Do you have any nominations for that?
I'll make a swooping motion that all officers remain the same the next term.
We still, I think procedurally, we need to do.
Procedurally, we have to go through each one.
Write it up how you like.
Yeah. I've got stuff down here, but
So we need a,
I'll nominate Tom Barber for chair,
okay,
and we need a second.
I'll second.
okay, any other nominations? None? I'm
So
here.
being none, I make a motion to close the nominations and elect Tom Barber as chair.
All in favor?
I
Aye. Any nays? None? He's our he's our current chairperson. Vice chairperson, need a nomination for that?
Mike Perky.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? None being?
I move to close the nominations and elect Mike Perky as chair.
Vice chair and
Yeah, vice chair. Yeah, second.
I'll second.
Second, Jim. Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Nope. Okay, Mike Perky is the vice chair. Move on to secretary.
I will. Make a
I'm over
motion
them.
to keep Mike Briggs, his handy little pen.
I'll second that. Any other nominations? No others, so nominations are closed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No. Thank you, Mike, for being our secretary.
Mike and Mike, congratulations. And Tom?
All set, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, we need to approve the minutes from November 13th meeting, 2025.
I'll
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Nope. Minutes are approved. Current ongoing business is, are McKenna people online?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's on. Jane's on. I see.
Good, okay. Good, I'd like her to kind of go over what she found out with the survey. If you could.
Hi, everyone. How are you this evening? I want to welcome my colleague, Emily Human is here as well. She has been working on the survey analysis as well as the demographic analysis. I will just start by saying I've been extremely impressed with the survey response rate. This has been one of the highest by proportion of property owners' survey response rates that any master plan that I've worked on has received. We're over 13% response with over 470 surveys, and the survey doesn't close until tomorrow. So we haven't analyzed all of the responses, and we will send you an updated report once we have. But really, I know there was some snafus with the initial mailing with the postcard, but really happy with how many folks responded and sent their surveys in. So just want to applaud the residents and property owners for that. And if you don't mind, I'm actually going to allow Emily to kind of discuss some of the findings since she's done the initial analysis.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. I'll just briefly introduce myself before I get into the preliminary survey results. So my name is Emily Human. I'm associate planner at McKenna. I grew up in Traverse City, Michigan, and my background is in housing planning and grant administration. So working on things like minor home repair grants. And that's the work I'm super, super passionate about. So I really appreciate you guys welcoming me onto this master plan team as we keep moving this process forward. So as Jane said, as of January 5th, we've received 478 surveys, both online and hard copy. This memorandum represents the results from 302 surveys that we've received as of January 2nd. So as Jane's mentioned, once the survey closes tomorrow at 5 p.m., we will update this memorandum to reflect the remaining surveys that still need to be tabulated and incorporated. So first, getting into the big picture vision for Gerrish Township. So we asked 3 different questions that emphasize what the vision for Gerrish, what respondents feel the vision for Gerrish Township should be in the master plan for the next 20 years. So overall, all three questions really emphasized natural resource protection, specifically the protection of Higgins Lake, and recreation as important parts of the community's vision. So using that information, we can draft a vision statement that would guide this master plan and include those elements. A third element that was also selected as a priority for improvement included broadband and cell service. So there may be some conflicts between these two goals, but the township is certainly able to support both of them by identifying areas in the future land use plan and map where broadband and cell service infrastructure might be most appropriate.
We do have a new cell tower going up.
Oh, that's good to know. Good to know.
Yes. Yes, it's
So,
be on the west side of Higgins Lake.
okay, that's good to know.
East
I'm sorry, east
Yeah,
side?
yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, east side, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
on the east side of Higgins Lake.
Mile north of here, right?
Yep.
And that has been a long-term hole in his system for sure, that area. So,
And that should be
Okay.
installed, when do you think, Jason?
Work was June, next June will be done.
Wait, that foundation, the foundation.
Okay.
But we're gonna be started.
Jim reported this morning that he thought it'd be June.
Yeah.
By the time they had it powered up.
So June of next year, we should have another cell tower to help with that.
Okay,
Six.
so it sounds like there's some strides to improve service for residents. So
Oh, June this year, yeah.
okay, that's great to know. So those are kind of the big vision questions that the survey touched on. Are there any specific questions regarding the vision? Okay, so moving on, so natural resource preservation was a big vision listed by respondents. So obviously there's going to need to be strategies to support that vision. So on page 3, natural resource preservation, in that section, we asked a question regarding various strategies, whether respondents would support that strategy or consider supporting it, or were unsure, neutral, or were opposed to that strategy. So in this question, responses were weighted. So the higher the weighted average, the more respondents agreed with that statement. So looking at kind of key takeaways from that question, the most supported strategy or policy was educating the public about steps they can take to protect Higgins Lake. So that's not entirely surprising. Education is often a highly supported strategy, in part because it's kind of a low-hanging fruit, right? It's something that's easy for the township to implement. It's easy for the township to implement some educational programs about steps the public can take themselves. The second highest supported strategy was township initiated septic inspections to prevent and reduce seepage. So as you can see, these are kind of two different strategies. One's a little bit more of a low-hanging fruit. One might take a bit of strategizing to implement, but those were the most supported strategies. The remaining strategies, respondents were largely neutral about, with the exception of, the strong support for education and township initiated septic inspections. So if there's any questions about that information, I'm happy to answer that. Otherwise, I can move on to some of the housing concerns that were identified. All right. So on page 5.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I ask a question? All right, this is Greg Seemack again. So I have a question about how the charts appear. And for instance, as I read this chart, the one that you last spoke about, it to me, it doesn't seem as though it's easily read, because all these bars seem to be almost the same size. So I guess one of my questions is, are these charts intended eventually to appear in the master plan?
They might, but not necessarily. So how the survey software we use presented the data for this question, it weighted it between the number of 0 and 2.5, and the higher, so the closer it is to 2.5, the more folks agreed with that statement. So I know it's hard to kind of differentiate the different bars, and that's why largely it appears just based on this graph that respondents are pretty neutral about various strategies. Um, however, just looking at the graphs, there's more support for educational programs and township initiated septic inspections. It's not significantly higher than the rest of the strategies, and that is because it seems to be that folks are largely neutral about these strategies. But I do completely understand your point about this graph maybe not being the most comprehensive, and there's certainly ways we can improve, the presentation of the data to make it clearer for folks. And I know Jane might have some added thoughts.
Okay.
Greg, I appreciate your point, and to Emily's point, as she kind of highlighted, the way that the data kind of gets outputted initially is on this weighted scale. And because we are utilizing this as an interim report rather than kind of the final survey report, rather than do our full analysis and create all of our infographics and graphs 2 or 3 times, we utilized what was the standard output so that we could, for the final report and then what goes into the master plan, create a more visually comprehensible graphic. So yes, it will be in a different format. I agree the weighted component is a bit confusing, but just to give an initial view at what we've heard so far, we wanted to kind of be as efficient as possible.
Okay, so, but the decision to whether to put graphs like this in the master plan is yet to be made and will be in the future. And that decision may also include changes in some of the charts so that they might be more easily read.
Yes, there will be graphs in the master plan. There will be graphs for the survey results. The form of the graphs will not necessarily be exactly what you're seeing today. So for instance, with this graph, I think that it will be presented in a different format. And that's what Emily was referring to when she said depends on what the question is and what format that graph will take. But there will be a very visual component of the results and the analysis.
Okay, and in the section, the question that calls itself the open response, asking us to tell us about a big deal, can we see what those verbatim responses are rather than just like a cloud chart like this?
Yeah, we can send you the full results once everything is put in and you can read all of the long answers.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. I really appreciate that. So moving on to housing concerns and strategies.
Can I mention one thing too?
Absolutely.
The septic inspections that they say is one of the top things that they are interested in. We are working on a septic system ordinance as of right now, and we might have one completed probably next few months, I would say.
Okay.
Just to give you a heads up on that.
Yeah, no,
I think that was one of the things you had discussed during your kickoff and was why we included it, because we knew that was, more of an actionable item. So just to take a litmus test while we were polling.
They're all within a quarter point of 2.5.
Okay.
That's all I had. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So getting into housing concerns. So how our survey software displayed this question, it flipped the weights, unfortunately. So in this question, unlike the previous question, the higher the weighted average, the more respondents disagreed with that statement. And so of these housing concerns, short-term rentals were a concern. So folks were concerned about the impact of short-term rentals on their property, and conversely, people mostly disagree that they wanted to have the option to rent their home out as a short-term rental. So those two answers kind of supported each other. And additionally, respondents were also supportive of accessory dwelling units as a housing strategy. Those are often sometimes called mother-in-law suites. They're basically a separate dwelling on the same property as a principal dwelling. So that was a strategy that folks seem to support. Are there any questions about the housing concerns and strategies? And I know the township is already taking steps to address short-term rentals, but based on this data, we can assume that the master plan, it would be beneficial to have a long-term strategy in that master plan regarding short-term rentals that any future ordinance amendments can be based off of, because as we know, zoning ordinances need to be based off of a master plan. So having a long-term strategy in the master plan around short-term rentals may be beneficial to consider for any future ordinance amendments. So they are based on that master plan.
Just to follow up on what you just said, that came up more than once at our public hearing 2 nights ago about the short-term rental ordinance being, in concurrence with the master plan. And so, yeah, and I was instructed today to make sure that we discuss that make sure that we make sure the master plan is set, consistent with what direction we're going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yep, that's definitely something that's important to keep in mind. And I think it will play a part in the update of ensuring that there is a policy laid out in there that any future ordinance amendments can be based off of. Okay. And next, so new technologies and industries. So as we know, there's been a lot of change since the last master plan was completed and adopted. We've seen things pop up like data centers that are becoming a really hot topic. So this section touches on new technologies like solar farms, wind farms, and data centers that the township should consider for their master plan update in terms of having policies. So with regards to emerging new technology systems, so respondents did want to see wind farms, data centers, and solar farms prohibited or restricted as much as possible. So this isn't particularly surprising. There can be some high visual impacts of these types of land uses on rural landscapes. And some of these land uses have extensive kind of public utility requirements. So it's not particularly surprising that respondents felt these land uses should be prohibited or restricted as much as possible. Remaining technologies were largely supported by respondents as being allowed with restrictions. So folks did want to see most of these technologies allowed in some way, but ensuring that regulations are in place to make sure that they're appropriate for the community. As far as options that folks wanted to see allowed with no restrictions or minimal restrictions, people were most supportive of allowing roof and building mounted solar panels with little or no restrictions. But even so, even more people wanted to allow those with some restrictions as well. So keeping that in mind, most of these technologies folks wanted to allow with some restrictions, with the exceptions of wind farms, data centers, and solar farms, which folks wanted to see prohibited or restricted as much as possible. Are there any questions about that section?
No.
All righty. Okay, and lastly, just getting into some survey demographics. So respondents were very evenly split between full-time residents and seasonal residents. There's slightly more full-time residents that responded to the survey. And then as far as the age demographics of the survey respondents, we unfortunately have had little to no youth or young adult participation as of yet. However, the township does have a high senior population, considering the median age is about almost 60 years old. The demographics of the survey respondents are largely reflective of the demographics of the township. So even though youth or young adult, the planning concerns relating to those age groups may not be reflected in the survey, we do feel that the respondents were largely reflective of the township's overall population. And so that is our preliminary survey results. Again, we will update this and send it back out to the board once the survey closes tomorrow and we have a chance to update these responses. And as Jane said, if folks want to see, the full survey responses, full unedited survey responses once the survey closes, we're happy to provide those. All righty. Well, if folks are all set with the community engagement results, I can move on to some of our demographics findings.
You have
Okay.
a quick question?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm in the audience here and I'd like to ask you a question.
She can't hear you without.
Yeah, I can't hear you unless you're at the microphone.
Well, I have a question. Can I go back to this, the big idea, the vision? Okay.
Sure.
So we asked the question, give me your big idea. And what you've done is you've taken everyone's answers and you said the word lake came up most in all these answers. I think that this doesn't tell us a damn thing, except lake came up in people's answers, or system, or property, or boat, or Higgins, or sewer, or whatever. What were the big ideas that people said? How can you summarize? Did somebody say we need to put an umbrella over the whole lake? Did somebody say we need to turn ourselves upside down? What is it? It's not these words. I've seen these words 100 times and I know how people do this. You say, look, on the survey, most people said the word lake, so that's the biggest type. But this tells us nothing about the vision. And I'm sorry I got excited about that, but I love this place and I was anxious to see these results. And I think that this vision, and when you said, does everyone understand the vision? I said to myself, no, I don't understand what the vision is. So maybe you can do something better on this part about what is the big deal?
If I
What's going to
may,
help us? Okay, thank you.
I will
Thanks,
address
Nate.
that. I'll address that if I may. Again, without having all of the survey results in at the time of this analysis with, about 2/3 of the results in, this is a preliminary kind of report. So the final report, the final memo, and then the final analysis that will be in the plan, with the final memo coming out, obviously prior to the plan draft, will have more of the actual language around what the big ideas were, a synthesis of those ideas, but without having, 1/3 of the results analyzed, that felt premature to really jump in and do in-depth synthesis at this point. So agree with you, very valid point. It was a snapshot of this moment on the survey results.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you for that answer.
I have a feeling that once we get the final results, it's going to take each of us some time to digest it, to figure out what you interpret came out of that. But I sent you, I think earlier this week, I sent you like 6 surveys that we had. Probably.
Jim, I'm sorry, you're breaking in and out. Can you maybe speak towards the microphone?
Yeah, sorry. I was saying that I think earlier this week, I think we sent you about 60 surveys that come into my office. Or maybe it's last week, or this was this week. I nailed them to you. And I think Jane knew they were coming. And then I faxed or sent PDFs of the other ones with an email attached. But I got more that came in. We had people that have dropped them off at our window. But I noticed a lot of them have writing in. I'm just wondering how that's all getting interpreted in here when people write a lengthy comment. Are you trying to summarize those and pulling them together in a category, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. And that's one of the reasons why the input process does take a lot of time, and there's kind of a backlog of, we also had people mailing them directly to our office. We got about, I think, 150 hard copies mailed directly to us. And so our administrative staff has been physically entering all of these responses into our survey software so we can have all of those handwritten answers documented. And that's where, like Greg asked for, the full list of those long form answers. We will be able to give those to you because we're entering them into our survey system. And that's what will allow us to do that in-depth analysis, by both reading through it all and then utilizing the synthesis, on our survey software. But that is part of the reason why this does take so much time, is because we have a staff person who's, physically sitting there and typing in, these answers on those physical copies.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thanks, Jane. I appreciate it. So getting into the demographics update. So demographics analysis provides really important data on who is expected to live in the township in the future and what their needs are. So updating this data is really important in figuring out what the key groups we need to address with through our planning strategies are, and what their needs are. So this data, this information is just part of the demographics update. These were the key points that I found most valuable to share. But this information, along with any other relevant data points, will be included in the appendices of the master plan update for folks to review. So first, getting into population projections and general demographics. So MCOG, Eastern Michigan Council of Governments, the regional planning agency in the area, creates these population projections using a few different methods to take into account as many factors affecting population change as possible. So obviously these are estimates, and it's not possible to take into account every single factor affecting future population growth. But by using these three different methods, I think it helps create a pretty good picture of what to expect for the future. So the average of these three different methods, based on these projections, the township should expect to lose around 148 residents in the coming 22 years. So that's not a huge decline, although considering how small your population is to begin with, it is a larger proportion. But however, it still stays pretty stable over that long period of time. So given that the population is not predicted to grow by a large margin, and is expected to decrease, placing an emphasis on managing the township's assets and services in a sustainable way moving forward will likely be a part of the master plan update and the action and implementation plan. So that will be something for the Planning Commission to consider, how to sustainably manage the assets that currently exist. So looking at median age data also provides a lot of really important insights for planning. Namely, people of different age groups have different planning needs, right? So seniors might be more concerned about ensuring that their homes are accessible long-term, or ensuring that they have access to transportation to get to different appointments. Whereas for families and children, their planning concerns might be more related to community facilities or activities available for children and their families. So Gerrish Township's population is moderately older than that of Roscommon County, and a lot older than the state of Michigan. So that's something for the township to keep in mind, to consider housing strategies and other planning strategies that support residents as they age.
And Emily, if I can jump in really quick, I just want to caveat that we understand that this data is representative of the residents who answer that they live more than 6 months of the year in the township. So it is difficult with the seasonal population to, fully capture kind of that seasonal demographic as well. And, we will address that with nuance in the master plan drafting. But I just wanted to kind of highlight that we understand that that's part of this process and some of, I guess, the flaw of having to work with the existing data for residential focus mostly.
Thanks, Jane. Yeah, that's a great point and something that's really important to keep in mind. Um, Next, getting into the township's housing data. Um, so looking at kind of the existing housing picture, according to the Census Bureau, in the American Community Survey. So there's been little growth or decline in the number of housing units, dwelling units in Gerrish Township. It's largely remained stable since 2000. Um, and as we said, there is a high seasonal population here. So there are a lot of units recorded as vacant. There's a very high vacancy rate. However, that's likely due to the high seasonal population. The vast majority of occupied homes are owner occupied, with only 35 renter occupied units in the township. And while the township's average household size was a little over 2 people, 2.13 people, the median number of bedrooms in a home in Gerrish Township is about 5 bedrooms. And so next, looking into the age and average cost of housing. So Gerrish Township's housing stock was slightly younger than that of the county or the state. So that's good in terms of things like maybe maintenance issues and efficiency. But as the housing stock approaches 50 years old, homes may begin to experience some maintenance and efficiency issues. So that's something for the township to keep in mind. Potentially, programs to support folks in fixing, health and safety related maintenance issues, or supporting energy efficiency might be something to look towards in the future. As in terms of average cost, the median mortgage was $1,510 per month, while the median rent was $1,636 per month. So housing values have overall increased over the past decade. So that's something to keep in mind, especially in terms of income and ensuring folks can afford those increasing prices. Next, employment and income data. So employment data, it's important in any master plan. In a place like Gerrish Township, where there is a significant amount of retirees, it may not have as many planning implications as it does in maybe other communities, but it's still really helpful data to know. So the prevalent industries in Gerrish Township really reflect the rural nature of the community. So the most prevalent employment type was educational services, healthcare, and social assistance. There's a significant amount of construction and retail trade employees. And also some service and public administration and manufacturing. So those are the large industries that reflect the rural character of the township. And then lastly, income and poverty in Gerrish Township. So the median household income is quite a bit higher than the county or the state. And again, I thought it was important to compare that to housing prices. So Gerrish Township does have higher incomes on average, and it has the lowest level of residents living in poverty. Based on the median incomes versus median mortgages and rents, it does appear that the housing stock in Gerrish Township is affordable for existing residents. So that's a really promising statistic. And just finally, I just wanted to provide an overview of just all the key takeaways from this data. So first, as far as population growth or decline, the population is expected to stay stable or slightly decrease. So managing the township's current assets and services will be important. The population of the township is older than that of the county or state. So strategies that support seniors may be good to consider for the master plan. And um, housing in Gerrish Township appears to be affordable for existing residents, which is promising, and can help, also attract other residents who may be interested in living in the township. Are there any questions about any of the information I've presented?
This is Mike. I have essentially statements, not really questions. Just some things to note that I think, and after the fact, that I didn't think of these kind of things beforehand to suggest, to help the survey. But when they talk about the number of bedrooms, we don't really equate that to what the size of the bedrooms are in the houses. So there's a lot of places here that have high number of bedrooms, but the bedrooms are like closets in a lot of other areas outside of here because of the nature of the older buildings and
Mm-hmm.
the resort stuff and seasonal homes. So that's just one thing to consider
Mm-hmm.
in your analysis.
Yeah.
I tend to disagree with the prediction of the decrease in population here, um, based upon things I've heard outside of these forums and also being on the ZBA, some of the comments and the appeals requests we've had where people are building houses are coming in. So what you got
Mm-hmm.
is myself included is retired up here 15 years ago, is I'm the boomer generation, and you have a lot of people that are just now, coming into the boomer age. Some of them, are working a little bit longer than the 65 years of age. So there's kind of a tail, and that is I think what you're going to see there is and we didn't account for it in the survey to ask how many people that are seasonal that intend to come up here permanently. And we heard some of the things for the short-term rentals recently that the comments made people, yeah, we're seasonal, but we tend to come up here full time, in the retirement stuff. So that's not really reflected in there. And I just throw that out there. The other thing with the housing costs and stuff with the mortgages, I think another misnomer on there is it's deceiving. Is there's a lot of places up here that are generational homes, and as a result of that, they don't have mortgages. A lot of them are paid off, and that can skew some of the results. And so some of the mortgages you're getting is, in the last, since COVID, there's been a huge increase in the prices of homes because of people, buying stuff and the rental booms and for, different reasons. But the costs have all of a sudden, my place is like almost tripled in, actual assessment value in the last 2, 3 years. And so the mortgage cost and the affordability costs are kind of skewed in somewhat because that's not really being reflected in the current stats right here with the people that have had homes for a period of time.
Thank, thank you. Yeah, those are great points, and I think that's super helpful to know and include those caveats in the analysis. Because again, as Jane said, census data already is less accurate in rural areas with small populations, but it's even more so complicated by the fact that there is a high seasonal population here. So adding those caveats to the analysis, I think will help paint, as accurate of a picture as we can of the existing conditions and existing concerns and what the township should be focusing on moving forward.
Okay.
If I can add, Mike, to that point, I agree. And so I did do a preliminary look into the data on houses without mortgages, and that share has definitely increased. And I didn't have time to make a whole table for it, but I did note that, to your point, the housing prices definitely increased. For instance, in 2015, only 5% of the houses were valued above 750,000, and that number is now over 10%. So, just as one, kind of snippet of that data, we do have ways that we can show both the mortgage component and then just the overall housing value as well.
And I think another thing with that disparity is there's a growing disparity now between the the houses in the lakefront properties and the houses on the back lots. So you're
Absolutely.
seeing, a larger increase, I believe, in this is just anecdotal stuff in the lakefront stuff versus a smaller increase on the back lot. Yeah.
But you know something, typically when I'm looking at here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We
Would you
can't
mind?
hear whoever's speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't put the TV. That is not talking my hand up there. I was saying,
Oh, Jim, I'm sorry. We still can't hear you.
Speak for me. Okay. What is it? Is the mic?
Testing, testing,
That one
Testing.
works.
Yeah.
testing, testing. You got
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yes.
Okay. So, I guess one of the things I was, how are you getting the information for the mortgages? I mean, where's that coming from?
That's information that the census is collecting.
Where's the source?
So when they do a survey, the American Community Survey is much more in depth than the census general questionnaire that goes out every 10 years. And they literally get on phone calls with people and they survey individuals. So it is individuals in terms of what information they're offering, but it is done through the Census Bureau. The American Community Survey is a survey that occurs every year and they average the results over 3 years.
Okay.
I can attest to that because I've received like 3 out of the last 5 years for my same address.
Yeah. The other thing that maybe, address what Mike had said, the inventory of the properties, there's the 3,370 dwellings that's available that are residential, like properties. The percentage of those that have PREs or principal resident exemptions, knowing how many of those were there 10 years ago and how many of those are today would tell you that conversion of, even though
I'm sorry. We can't hear you again.
what I'm saying is if you had on that same inventory from 10 years ago to where it is today or whatever, that would address Mike's concern about the transition of resort property or second home into principal residence who's living here. You follow me?
Yeah, I do hear what you're saying. And I think that that could be very valuable information, and we can certainly work with the treasurer on gathering that information and analyzing it.
I'm the treasurer, so I can
Oh,
help
you're the
you.
treasurer. So you can help me. Okay, well, perfect. I'm glad to get right to the source here.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Also, I had one question too, on the dwellings, year built, 2020 or later.
Yes.
Jason, could you help me out on this one? How many approximately have we had new homes built since 2020? We've had quite a few though, right?
50-ish, 40 to 50.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's,
So
But there's also not only the new homes built, but you look at how many have actually been, a major reconstruction. Because there's been probably a lot more of those.
but I just want to, because right now we have, 000 on percentage of new homes, and Jason, who's our building department expert, says there's 40 to 50 probably new homes have been built since 2020 or later. So
well, that's helpful. So what we can do is
Jason, maybe you get
supplement.
that number for us.
Yeah,
Did you look that up?
I would say what would be helpful for us at McKenna is if the township is willing to provide like building permit data, just noting how many structures have been built since 2020 and what those permits report, what those structures were, whether it was single family or some other housing type. That would be really valuable information to supplement any inaccurate data the census has.
Report that Marianne does every month. If she does that compiled for the year, is that have, they would have that.
But Jason, you could look that up for us somehow.
Yeah, it's not like I push a button.
Right, I know, exactly.
I can tell you how many new homes
Yeah,
every year, for the last 5 years.
okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be super appreciated if that data could be sent to us so we can supplement this.
That's all I
Okay.
had. Any other questions, guys?
All righty. Well then, with all that in mind, I just wanted to highlight kind of our master plan next steps. So what we're going to be working towards for the next meeting. So the survey closes tomorrow, as we said. So we're going to close the survey, input any remaining hard copy surveys we have, and update the survey analysis accordingly. Additionally, we will reach out to the township to collect the some building permit data, the data regarding PREs, and supplement some of this data in the data analysis. And then I know that you guys in September had a discussion on goals and objectives. So using all the information gathered from the survey, the data analysis, and the goals and objectives discussion you had back in September, we are going to start drafting a future land use plan and map that reflects all of that information. And then we will bring it back to the next meeting to have kind of a first discussion and see, okay, did we get it right? What did we miss? What needs to change? What's great? And hear all of those thoughts from the board. So that is what we're going to be working towards for the next meeting. Does anyone have any questions for myself or for Jane?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
All
Well,
righty.
I really appreciate your time, Emily and Jane.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I think you've done a good job compiling stuff so far.
Thank you. Thank you for having us and taking the time to hear us tonight. We appreciate it.
so Jane, this is Jim again. You want me to put all together the last of the surveys that I get in through tomorrow and just email them to you like I did this last batch?
That's perfect. Yep.
Okay. We kind of hit them hard every time somebody came in to pay their taxes. We remind them to do their surveys.
Well,
So,
it really paid off. Great
but
job.
a lot of people turned them in or did them right there. But I'd say that
Your
putting them
timeline.
in with the
Currently, we schedule our meetings every other month. So our next
Yes, so
meeting
we'll come
schedule would
back
be like
and-
March.
Yep.
Yep. So all of the next steps that I just discussed, that's going to be the goal to bring to the March meeting.
Okay.
So
And
just
we'll get you the survey results, so you have a lot of time to mull those over ahead of the March meeting.
Yes, absolutely. We will get those to you well before March.
okay, this is Mike. I just clarify the stuff for the minutes. For your next steps, it's finish the survey collection and analysis, get the building permit data from Jason, get the PRE data from Jim, and then the last two I was fuzzy on. Was it goals and objectives assessment or?
So my understanding was in September, the board has already had a discussion on the goals and objectives for the master plan back in September. So based on all of the data collection we've done so far, we're going to draft a future land use plan and map. So that goes over the different future land use designations and what land uses are appropriate in those designations, and then assigning those designations to the parcels throughout the township. And so we're going to draft that based on what we've heard so far. And we will bring it back to the board and have discussion and see what needs to change, what needs to, what we got right. And then we'll edit that future land use plan and map after that meeting, based on the feedback we get from that discussion in March.
Okay, thanks. That clarifies it. I missed that.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Anything else, guys? That's about it. I really appreciate your time again, Jane and Emily. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
We'll
Bye-bye.
talk to you soon. Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Short-term rental ordinance update, Township Board released the STR draft A, or with various amendments and attorney review. Public hearing scheduled for January 6th was held. And we had, I guess, a number of comments. I heard it was a good hearing. Jim, you kind of did cover that a little
I think
bit.
we covered it when
we
Dave
covered it.
came up, but the only thing I would tell you is the next meeting is the 16th. It'll be a public meeting. I'm not sure how the protocol will be. I would imagine that Brian may allow speaking at the beginning or the end of it, but not during it. So when we sit down to talk, we're not going to allow, I'm sure, people to interject while we're discussing it.
Okay.
But he runs the meeting, and I'm just telling you what I think.
And that's 1 o'clock, correct?
They did it in the afternoon so that people could attend it that might be coming up over the weekend or something. That's kind of why it was put on there.
All right. Well, that's good then. I appreciate that. Jim? You guys have any questions on that? All right, in the septic systems ordinance update, Health of Higgins Lake steering committee and subcommittees continued to meet.
I can give you.
Yeah, I can say.
We just had our work session this morning, so I got a report from Jim Osling, and I'm on that committee, but I haven't been able to attend because it seems like there's always a conflict with something else I'm gotta be at. But they are very, very close to a draft. They got down to the point, I think as far as the ordinance that they've drafted, they're comfortable with it. They got into an issue of variances and whether they should be given and to whom and how. And I kind of told Jim, like, your guys are splitting hairs when you aren't in a position to do that. That's what the planning commission will probably tackle those things once it comes around this way. So I think they're going to wrap that up pretty quick, and it'll go to the steering committee. You're on the steering committee, right?
No, I'm
No,
not.
you're not. Well, anyways, it'll go to the steering committee. The steering committee will then make a recommendation to the board. The board then will decide what to do with it, which I assume will be to assign it to the planning commission. So
He's
sometime,
on the steering. Okay.
No, I'm not on the steering committee. No,
Yeah.
there's only
Yeah.
7 people on it, something like that.
and Jim is no longer on the steering committee.
He
Jenny
was
Walker got
the
appointed
temporary
as-
chair, and now they've got a
he's gonna
chair to
step
replace
back.
him.
And he'll be there, but he won't. It was not intended to be run by the
No.
township. It was supposed to be run by the community.
The chair stepped down, so he temporarily filled the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I expect as soon as that starts making its rounds, it'll be back here, but I'm not sure it'll be another 3 months.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Jim.
Yeah.
New business, review proposed ordinance changes to the following articles, Jason, did you want to handle this?
Did you all receive what I sent?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, is there, I guess, any questions or concerns or issues or? I was basically asked by the supervisor to, go through my mind and any ordinances that are pains in my butt, maybe to see what I could do to make them not pains in the butt. So
Mhm.
that's basically why this is come about.
Okay.
Jason, could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Could you go over the things that you've submitted here and tell us, what the change is and what the thinking is behind asking for that change?
Absolutely.
Without the better idea. Thank you.
Absolutely. So the first one is the fence ordinance. And that has been an issue in my mind since I've been here. So basically the main issue was the 30% covered. Nobody understands that. Nobody can figure it out. What does that mean? They just look at me like I'm out of my mind, And anyways, I've looked at 3 or 4 other ordinances, and in this area, Markey, Denton, Higgins, Lyon, they're all 50%, and that is simple. Everybody understands 50%, right?
Mhm.
And then the other thing is that's always been an issue in my mind is with the privacy fence, which in this case would be now anything that's more than 50% covered. The 10 feet off the property line, that makes perfect sense to me. The can't project more than 25 feet out from the dwelling. That kind of, I've never seen that anywhere else.
Mhm.
I don't understand it. I don't know why it's there.
If I recall, I think from years ago, if somebody was mentioned, it kind of had to do, I think, with hot tubs or something like that, that would be attached to the building. And that,
You might as well just not say no privacy fences at all if you're going to leave it
Right.
like that.
yeah, I know, but
That's
that's
easy.
what I think that, because
Right. Give
was the-
somebody you can, maybe put a fence 16 feet out from their house to cover their deck or something. I get that.
right. Yeah. So I think that's what it was for. But then when we had that issue with a fence out in an open area, it's like, wait a minute, there is no building
Right.
and they wanted, it's like, you couldn't do one here. So you could,
My whole process was this is just to try and clean it up, make it easier to understand, easier to enforce, easier to tell people what's expected and what isn't. And then the waterfront and any a privacy fence should not be in a front yard at all in my mind.
Mhm.
But the way the ordinance reads currently, you can have a privacy fence all the way around your house as long as it's 10 feet from a property line and doesn't go more than 25 feet out. So I'm in putting in there that they're flat out not allowed in the front yard.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So it's sometimes difficult to know what a front yard is on a lakefront property because the road frontage is on the, on one and usually in the back and then the lakeside. So which is the front of the house?
Good point.
So we have a section in the ordinance that shows that
Okay.
the lakefront side is the front yard.
Okay.
So that's clear there.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
So the only way you can have a privacy fence in a front yard on a lakefront is if you live on a road end.
right now, that's
Correct.
Right.
And that will stay in there.
Okay.
If you live on a road end, you can have a privacy fence right on the property line and right to the high water mark. Other than that, now with the new change, you absolutely cannot have a fence that's more than 50% covered in any front yard in any district.
How about, places that are offset further than 50 feet? So you have places like you couldn't put a if you have a place that has 50 feet and the next door neighbor is at 100 feet, you go halfway between, so it's 75 feet, so you're off. So this right here is saying that that house that's back at 75 feet could still put a privacy fence up to 50 feet. I would,
Mhm.
that's something I want to throw out there. I don't know the correct answer right now, one way or the other, but I throw that for, there may be some caveat that maybe it can't, 50 feet is the closest it can go, but it can't go further than the front of their house. And if their house is set back there, then that becomes the limit.
I mean, I don't
Again,
know
I'm
how
just
far you can go with it to
Yeah.
find every loophole, but I think at least saying it can't be in your front yard is a must,
right.
even if it's not lakefront.
That makes sense.
I don't think it's an issue to keep it off the side lot lines and rear 10 feet. That's pretty typical. But to limit it to the 25 feet out, I don't think we have had a privacy fence go up in my 12 years because of that. Might as well just say we don't allow them and be done with it. If you're gonna let it go back 25 feet, well, why can't you let it go back 40 feet? As long as it's 10 feet from the rear property line. Those are my thoughts on that.
And I think that was also something that we've seen in the ZBAs and similar with the people that are starting to move up here now full time. It's a different, a lot of them are coming from the suburban, more from the suburban areas and, cities and stuff where they're used to that. And so it's a different type of feeling from the people that are tend to move up here that now want the things, vice the people that didn't in the past too. That was some of the rationale behind.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm, still fairly new on this board. And when the ordinance talks about, percentage of view and airflow, because I know some of those fences have those, they're sort of staggered.
Mm-hmm.
So explain the airflow, I guess, concept to me. So,
I think it's just another word they threw in there.
okay.
To me, it's 50% makes it much clearer. If you have a 2-inch slat, you got to have at least a 2-inch space.
Okay.
So if it's 30%, that gets murky to
Right.
try and figure out what's 30%.
Different to calculate. Yeah, different to calculate.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a lot easier to explain to people because when I tell this 30% to people that it's a homeowner trying to get a permit, they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Put a piece of paper up behind there, post a board, shine a flashlight, shade in the stuff.
Yeah,
and then
you got to measure
do
a
the calculation.
square foot of the fence, measure everything that's covering that foot,
All right.
measure the space, and then divide it and figure that out. And 50% is pretty simple. Everyone can do that.
Hey, Jason?
Yes, sir.
I'm pretty supportive of what you want to do here, and especially so because this is something that your experience tells you would be good for you to work with. So I don't know, Mike, maybe you can answer this question, but so what are we to do with these? Are we to vote to support these changes, or is there anything necessary that has to be done other than that? And should we vote on them one at a time? And how do we get something done here tonight for you, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
So basically, Scott Hess is working on 2 other changes. He was supposed to have them to me prior to the Christmas break. He did not. So at this point, I'd just like to get your thoughts on these 3. If you guys are okay with them, you don't have to vote tonight or anything because I still got 2 to bring you from Scott. At the next meeting, you could go over those and we could get your approval on those at that time, at that meeting. And then if you guys are good with them, then they would go to the township board and they would get their approval. And once they vote that they're approved, then we would have to have a public hearing.
Okay.
Right.
So go ahead.
I was just saying several years ago, we stopped it a couple times and we were going to table, we were going to do a bunch at once and then schedule a public hearing. And I think the public hearing has to be scheduled before, just like some of the other site plan stuff. I think we do it before we give the recommendations to the township board. So we would look at this and say, do we approve this to go before a public hearing, have the public hearing, and then after that, make adjustments and make a recommendation to the board and then send it to them. And then they may, want to have a further public hearing or.
So at this meeting, I'm basically just give me my reasoning on these three, get your thoughts. You can think about it till the next meeting, or you can let me know tonight. Do you think I'm crazy about any of it, or you're okay with it? You really don't have to vote until I get the other two from Scott and we can go over all. And they'll have to then go back to Scott. Fine, Will. I did send him to him, but he hasn't gotten back to me on these three that I'm talking about tonight.
Okay, well, I'm interested in hearing your explanations of the other 2 pages that you sent to us. But I also want to deal with one other thing and just ask you what, if anything, has been done about it. Is in the past, we've had some problem with front yards of lakefront property, and it didn't have to do with fences, but what it had to do with was vegetation. And people could, I believe, could without any difficulty put up whatever vegetation they wanted on their property and completely obliterate whatever view there might be from neighbors' properties. I know that's kind of different than this subject, but has any of that also been discussed, or do you have any ideas about that?
I'm 100 having hasn't been discussed, but
Jason, your mic's cutting in and out.
I'm not for any kind of ordinance that would prohibit planting of shrubbery. Hasn't been discussed. It could be brought up to the township board, I guess.
Your mic is junk.
That was my mic. Yeah, we can take that one right there. That's
Take that one.
used.
Yeah, that one was.
Yeah, Jim obviously broke it.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
It's not been brought up. No. I guess to answer your question, it hasn't.
Okay.
I haven't had a lot of experience with it. I'm not necessarily for that kind of an ordinance. I would not want to be involved in the enforcement of it, but I guess it's over my head.
Trim that bush a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't do
All right,
it,
thank you.
I'll help do it.
Yeah. Any more questions on that first one?
No.
All right. The second one is regarding signs, commercial signs. And I guess my reasoning here is, the ordinance says your sign has to be a minimum of this and a maximum of that. So to me, it's pointless to then say, depending on the size of your building, you get 1 square foot for every 2 foot of building that aligns with the road. That, to me, that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why it's there. So just get rid of it and say your sign can be between this and this.
Well, back in the day, that was kind of to keep the storefronts cleaner looking and not just have a solid banner sign across the front of them. So you might say it was aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it still applies or not, don't know.
Right. I think every sign that I've permitted in the last 12 years has been 4x8. It's pretty standard, but you might get somebody who wants to do a huge sign and has a little business. I don't know.
We'll look at it. Maybe we can come up with something else.
Okay.
So the current thing was saying that 1 square foot for each, what you highlight in yellow, that's what's current and what you're saying.
The yellow is what would be
wants to
removed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the last one that I'm working on here is the reason this is even has come up is I ran into a situation where a homeowner has an existing home on a piece of property and has what I would consider a guest home. And she wanted to do something to it. I don't even remember now. It's been a couple of years, but I said, well, that's non-conforming. You can't have two dwellings on a lot. And she said, well, it's not a dwelling. And I said, well, I believe it is. And she said, well, according to your own ordinance, our definition of a conventional single-family dwelling is a detached building or portion thereof designed and used exclusively by one family for living, cooking, and sleeping purposes. And she said, well, we don't have a kitchen in us. It's just a bedroom, a family room, and a bathroom. So there's no cooking being done in there, so it's not a dwelling. So I immediately went to Scott Hess because I'm thinking this could be a serious issue down the road here. What's going to stop people from putting bedrooms in their garage as long as there's not a kitchen? And he said, yeah, we probably should clean that up and do something with that. So my thought was just in the habitation of accessory buildings, just say sleeping quarters are prohibited in them, period. And then we would have to put in a definition of what a sleeping quarter is in the definitions category.
Did you say right now is she being taxed for two dwellings on?
I don't know what she's being taxed for.
I mean,
but if the whole purpose is to stop people from having separate dwellings, obviously if you're sleeping in something, I think that's what we want to, mainly what we want to stop.
Is that a mother?
Right.
Well, I mean, my family has that, and it's been the family there, and it's grandfathered in, but
right,
same thing. It's
there's lots of them grandfathered in.
A bathroom and a place you sleep with beds.
There's tons of them around.
Yeah, and it's no kitchen, but it's considered, we're getting taxed on it as a two dwelling.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what they're being taxed on. It's just if we want to stop this from happening in the future, this to me would be a pretty good way of doing that. Because this person just flat out had done her research and said, no, it's not a dwelling, which normally I'd just say you can't do that. And they're like, okay, but she found a loophole. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the whole reasoning for that.
Okay.
Any question, Tom or Greg?
Well, there is a history of doing just what she's asking for in various places.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little bit of a movement right now for mother-in-law apartments, that type of thing, additional sleeping areas with the housing shortage, that stuff. If you read the zoning news, there's a lot of areas that are redoing their zoning to allow these type of structures. The thing is, if you do allow them, I think they have to meet all the codes that would apply: smoke detectors, egress, et cetera, et cetera. One caveat could be if there's a bathroom it's sleeping areas. You have to know if the size of your septic is appropriate for those extra bedrooms.
Exactly.
Tom's exactly right. There are a lot of communities that are including ADUs now because they're trying to expand the housing availability. But they're the ones that I'm familiar with, like I'm from Ann Arbor and I've seen Ann Arbor's law. There's a lot, you got to have a certain size lot to be able to do it. They got to be hooked up to there. That's a sanitary sewer, but I mean, they have to be hooked up. Oh, there's a lot of restrictions on before you can ever get one done. So I do think it would be worth our consideration. Is that something we want to look at or not?
I can tell you this, that I've gotten, lots of calls and questions about, can I build a second home or a mother-in-law suite? And every one of them is on the lake. It's not anywhere off the lake that anyone wants to do this. They want more people to come on to their lake property. Whether that matters or not, it doesn't matter to me, but.
No, I'm not saying we should be for or against it. I think it's worth our discussion though, to see if it has value or not.
Yeah,
I really don't know.
It kind of ties into the short-term rental stuff because it also is an incentive for other people then it's another loophole to try and say, well, I'm renting out
Airbnb,
a room, while I'm there.
You know?
And then, these are for family, but then, I can do it for the other things. So it's something that needs to be discussed. I
Well,
think.
that's something that also took place years ago. You could build a detached garage 2-story, and then the next thing you know, all the second stories are apartments. So that's why the township said you can't build a detached garage 2 stories anymore. It can only be 1 story. So in my mind, that was something they were trying to stop, and this kind of goes along with that.
Probably for good reason.
Absolutely.
I have one that was built in 1949. It was built for that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the three I had. The two that Scott is working on is one of them is the ordinance that is the Higgins Lake shoreline stabilization. Uh, we're going to just put a provision or a sentence in there. Basically, that ordinance says that the 10 feet from the high water mark in is untouchable, cannot be altered. And we're trying to just put a provision there that would say, if this shoreline, say, is damaged due to ice heave,
Erosion or whatever.
right, you can repair it to where it was before that damage. If it heaves all your sand out, well, you can bring some sand back in and fix it. Just give that provision, because right now it just basically says you can't touch it. You know, so we're just going to put a provision in there if it's damaged due to an act of God or an ice or however he's going to word it.
That makes sense.
I thought so.
That's reasonable. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Fill it back in with sand, not a seawall.
right, right. Well, that questions come up a lot, and I'm like, well, the ordinance says you can't touch it. I'm sorry. I don't have to tell you, but
Is there, now, I'm not sure. Does Eagle have to give permits to stuff that's done on the lakefront?
only if you're going below the high water mark.
Okay.
And then the other one that he's working on is the off-site advertising ordinance. That's like the biggest pain in my butt right there. I would just as soon do away with it, but I don't think that's going to happen. So for years prior to me being here, and probably my first 6 years, the previous zoning people and then me for the first 6 years would just pull them and bring them back here. And then in 2020, with the election, the sign thing went berserk. And so I was having to meet with Scott all the time about how to deal with these election signs. Different, and that's not what we're talking about. But in talking to him about that, we talked about the pulling of signs, and he said, you can't pull signs. First of all, our ordinance says if you're breaking an ordinance, we have to notify you, give you written notification, and give you a minimum of 20 days to be compliant. Well, that's just ridiculous with off-site advertising signs. Most of them are just a phone number. So I said, look, if we're going to keep this ordinance and you want me to do something about this, let's write something that says off-site advertising signs will be pulled.
Yeah.
So he's kind of working on that right now. Those are the two.
I think that's
Okay.
a great idea.
That makes sense too.
Yeah.
Is that a police power ordinance?
No. See, it used to, I talked to Brian Hill and he said years ago, the old chief prior to Brian
Yeah,
had the police department pull them.
yeah. I heard stories.
Yeah. And the road commission used to pull
Commission
them.
pulls them if they're in the right of way.
They don't anymore.
They don't
But
anymore.
they used to, and 99% of them are in the road right away. So if they still did, they probably wouldn't be an issue. But here I am pulling signs now or calling people. Can you remove your sign? Kind of thing. So we're trying to make that, if we're going to have the ordinance and it needs to be enforced, then I got to have some way of doing it other than calling you and telling you have 20 days to move your sign.
So what's the current ordinance on the sign? So you're talking about like somebody who posts a,
Jamming
You
a
know-
sign that says, Jim's Roofing. Throw them all over the township next
Mm-hmm.
to the road. That's offsite advertising. You can't have that.
right, okay, so I've had people, do that in my properties and stuff because of the road. They'll put a garage sale.
Well,
here.
garage sale's different, but
the signs like that, or they do an advertising, they just put
stump
somebody's-
grinding, whatever your
Yeah,
business is,
they
you can't
do-
just put them all over. If you're doing stump grinding at that property, you can put a sign up,
Yeah, but if the owner does.
but you can't just throw them willy nilly all over the township.
Okay, yeah, so if somebody comes up and wants to put a sign in your property, even if it's, I guess, the road right away kind of stuff, but it's, at the end of your road where it's you're mowing the grass and stuff on
Mhm.
there. Is it okay for that owner to take that sign off, or do they?
Well,
have
yeah,
to-
especially if it's on their property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's not like, well, it's 5 feet from the
No.
road and then that's okay.
It's not supposed to be on the road right away, and the ordinance says it's not supposed to be in the township.
Yeah.
Period. But in the enforcement of it,
They'll just give you the authority to take care of it.
been ridiculous. So we're trying to make it, at least back when we didn't know better and we just went and pulled them, it was pretty simple. But now we need to have the teeth, I guess, in case somebody wants to takes the court on it, which I probably would never happen, but that's kind of what he's working on. And, hopefully I will have his kind of back to me within not too long, and I'll get those to you. And you can mull all of them over and come up with any ideas or changes, and we'll go from there.
I guess, just a thought is, regarding the mother-in-law thing that you just talked about,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking to tighten that up so that those aren't just automatically allowed to. And I guess
Yeah.
that ties in a little bit with the STR issue, because the way the draft is right now that we have, PREs, you'll notice it says in there, they just, they can't get a license. Well, originally when that was written in the draft prior to that, before Scott changed, he just flat out changed that, made it a very simple comment. And before there was an exception for PREs, if you live there and you were renting it out, that you would not be required to get a license for the SDR. And it kind of falls back to what you comment about the old days where somebody was there and grandpa rented out the place for a few weeks out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, if you went by the letter of the law or black and white, that's the same as that's commercial activity. But, if you look at it from the way it was and the way we are now, that activity's always been there. It probably always will be there, whether you like it or not, even if we have an ordinance. Because if I go and I rent my place out for 2 weeks, what are you going to do about it? Turn me into Jason or to the police department? As long as I'm not causing a problem. And I kind of, this is Jim Anderson's perspective, not necessarily the board's. Those weren't the ones I'm concerned about. The ones I'm concerned about is where they went out and bought into a neighborhood that was R1 exclusively and just turned that into commercial activity in there. That's far off the other direction. Those are the ones that I'm targeting from my standpoint when I look at that ordinance, not the little old lady that subsidizes their taxes. Now, I heard different arguments Tuesday night on, that's too bad that you're in that situation, but you still shouldn't be renting your place. And I could see that, but I also see that those old ways were there back in the 1930s, like they just had said.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened now, the old ways have evolved into, this monster. And that's where, as I see it, where the ordinance needs to be addressed.
Well, yeah.
I'm not so interested if somebody has a PRE, but if you change that to make it so that everybody can have a mother-in-law suite, then we end up making that exclusion somehow or exception, we're gonna create a real
question.
problem. Cause everybody's gonna get a PRE
Yeah.
and they're gonna be renting their property
Exactly.
out.
Yeah.
And I don't want to create that loophole either.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, this is gonna be a difficult decision. Uh, and I don't think everybody's gonna be happy, no matter what we do. But that's I guess, a point I want to make sure that we don't. If we're going to slide that way, then I'd rather there's no exceptions on those STRs at all. That's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Any other comments about anything Jason brought up?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
We had, Mike, did you want to do that,
Yeah.
calendar move?
Basically, for the calendar schedule for 2026, I would just recommend that we go ahead and adopt the same way we've had it Thursdays, second Thursday of the odd months at 7 PM. And then convene special meetings as required for additional workload, whatever, at the same time on the off months. And even if it doesn't have to be that time, it depends on the situation. So
Would you like a motion to that effect? Or you?
yeah, so basically the meeting dates would be 8 January, which is today, 12 March, 14 May, 9 July, or July 9th, September 10th, and November 12th. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Support. Oh, go ahead.
Nope.
Okay, Jim Anderson's forwards.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Just have a vote?
Yeah.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
I
Any nays? Nope, passes. Thank you, Mike. Now we're back to, public comment. Anything else? You good? Thank you. Jim, anything you want to add?
think I've spoken all the topics I'm involved in.
Thank you for, filling us all in. We appreciate that. Well, then I
I have
guess
a
our next
question.
regular,
I have,
I have a question,
yeah,
Mike. And Jim, I think this question is for you, if you would. What are the next steps now for the short-term rental discussion within the board? Is there going to be discussion and consideration of the comments that have been made thus far prior to the January 16th meeting? Or is it just expected that everything will take place at that time?
Well, for the purpose of transparency, the board is not discussing it until the 16th. We had a work session today. We referenced that meeting from Tuesday, and the cutoff for getting the information to the clerk. She's compiling all of the people's comments, both verbal from the meeting, plus we've gotten a lot of written ones. They'll be available for each of the board members to check it out and read it, because we haven't, everybody doesn't see what everybody else is getting. It. We're trying to funnel it all through the clerk so that it's compiled. And then on the 16th, we will, as a board, have a roundtable discussion. I'd like to say, yeah, we're going to come up with a resolution that day. And then a month ago, I would have told you that was possible. I'm going to say it's not likely that we'll have it finalized on the 16th, because we'll probably end up having to go back to Scott Hess with some more questions. But so there's a lot of moving parts and pieces of this, and a lot of different opinions. I think our board is necessarily solid as they were on the different aspects. And originally I wanted to see this rolled out on April 1st. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I guess we're going to have to see. But
And
the
there were some
16th is the
suggestions.
next date. That is the next date.
Okay, there were some suggestions about things that might be reworded. And will any of those things be reworded before the meeting on the 16th, or will they just go forward with what was presented in that draft 4 and then talk
That's
about?
That's the purpose of the meeting, is to talk about those things.
Okay,
We can't do it outside the meeting. That would be breaking the public trust. So we have to do it in an open forum.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just got three quick things. One, the ZVAs, we don't have anything on the schedule. Haven't had anything for a while. Jason said there's a couple that are considering something, but at this point, nothing on the current schedule in the near term. And I'm going to have a draft. I'll send to everybody proposed for the 2025 annual report that we do. I'll get that proposed thing to you at the next meeting so we can review it. And the last thing is just as an FYI, it's concerning cell towers and Congress. And basically, there's an FCC bill that is in Congress right now, in the House, and it was fast tracked through the subcommittee. I forget which one is the one that did it, but dealing with in the communications. But and anyways, basically it says what they're doing now is trying to write up that there will be unlimited that any cell tower company could put a cell tower up anywhere they wanted, regardless of whatever ordinances exist. So it completely takes the control out of any local or state government stuff. So right now in our ordinance, we have some restrictions. It's got to be within setbacks and that stuff. So what they did, it's part of another overarching bill with the FCC. I forgot the number. I can get it to you if people want, but they had open comments from the public response. It got passed through the subcommittee, put to the House. And then it's an open public response were due at the end of December. And then now the Congress has till the 15th of January to respond to those comments and stuff. And then it may go before a vote and stuff. They had an oversight hearing where an opportunity with the FCC people came in the Congress to be able to voice, people that weren't on that committee that reviewed the thing, and that they had that, but the particular cell tower issue never came up. But I bring that up is just that's something, if, there's still opportunities to make, opposition or notify the appropriate congressmen, senators, representatives, and of the incoming stuff. And, that could have a serious, impact on people's health or whatever I mean, they could put one right next to your house, right next to the property line. You can't say a thing about it. So that's, some serious things that are coming down the pike that we need to be aware of and stuff. So that's the last thing I have.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody have any other comments? Then our next regular scheduled meeting is March 12th at 7:00. And if nothing else, then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.